I love sharing my art. That is what makes me feel complete. I do it because it's what gives me joy, but sharing is what completes me, fulfills me, and nothing is a better feeling in life than doing what you love and helping other people with it. So that's what this is all about. And thank you for being here and telling people that you think would appreciate it. If they can't make it to the live reads, 2 o'clock every Saturday, then they are recorded and you can see them at incandescencebook.com. My YouTube channel is The Creativity Show. I'm Clare Cooley, if you didn't know that. And this is live read from my memoir, Incandescence, Rising Above Darkness. Thank you to the Minnesota State Arts Board for awarding me a grant to do these live reads. I so appreciate this community and the support for the arts for me and the other creatives here. For me, art has been a healing place, and I love sharing that with others, which is why I wrote my book, as many told me my stories help them. So, as I've said, nothing better than doing what you love and having it help others. So, we will read a story today. It's all about cranes. So, the story will be about cranes. It is my memoir, so it's all the best I can do to tell the truth. And that's Scary Wonderful, I like to call it. I actually am a shy, reclusive, contemplative person, so sharing my stories with the world is a courageous act for anyone, and I think it's deeply enriching to face our fears and share our truth. The world needs all of us to be whole, so I hope there's something here in my many facets of art, from writing to dishes to fine art to dance to posters, stationery, books, that inspire you to enjoy your own creativity and express it, because it's healing to any emotion expressed, stimulates our immune system, and the world needs all of our perspectives to be a full and whole place. So I hope you are encouraged to share your creativity with others. So first, today, I want to talk a little bit about the cranes and show the room a little bit before we read the story. But I'm going to start with a question which inspired today's reading. Why cranes? Well, it's a good question. Thank you so much for asking it. That was sent to me in a text, and that's why I chose this story, because it's about that inquiry in myself that I wrote this story about. And I'd be happy to go further in depth on that question after I read the story, if anybody has any more that the story doesn't answer. And the cranes have not only inspired my dance, my writing, even my bamboo flute playing, but my wardrobe, making this kimono into a jacket and the jewelry to go with it, but these 202 hand-thrown, hand-carved dishes that I did in collaboration with my stepsister, Eliza Thomas. Every dinner plate of the 15 dinner plates is a different species of crane, and there's a salad plate, soup bowl, dessert bowl, there's coffee, sake set, tea set, water or wine set, soup tureen, salt and pepper shakers, little condiment dishes, even little candle holder or floral holder. There's these sauce and the little for soy sauce or for honey, for sugar and milk. So as I said, there's 202 dishes in this place setting. Across the top of the cabinet are the vases. All of it is inspired by the cranes and their habitat.
How about turn the light off on top real briefly and then we'll get a better view of the top ones. Yeah, that gives us
So they're all, I carved all these cranes and their habitat into these dishes while I was doing the paintings of the 15 species of cranes that then became the Book of Cranes, published by Pomegranate Art Books. You got that?
Got that.
Okay. And so, before we read the story, how about let's show some of the other art in the room. That's an original Japanese cranes, and below it, below this one, which is in the Book of Cranes, are the 4 Japanese cranes mating dance, and below we have another Japanese crane in a snowfield. And on this side of the room, we have a screen that I painted with, these are actually egrets on here. And here's more cranes, West African crowned crane. And here we have another screen that's all 15 species of cranes that are in the Book of Cranes. And a couple of the images were used in the stationery. So the Book of Cranes looks like this, and the stationery like this. Here's that. Stationery comes with the 2 images and 10 seals, 10 cards, and 10 envelopes in this folding. And the Book of Cranes does spread out, printed on both sides to 7 feet, all 15 species. So, and then of course it's also the other side. I also wrote it, and it's information about the cranes and their habitat, and there's references to what people around the world have thought about cranes, from indigenous people here and around the world to Japanese. This is actually a wedding kimono in the Japanese culture. Cranes simplify longevity, so they put them on the wedding kimono. Good luck, peace, prosperity, harmony. They represent a lot of beautiful things in different cultures around the world, and some of that's in the book. Here are some crane platters that the one in the center there is actually the original that these molded plates were made from.
You don't have to pick it up, we can see it.
Yeah, it's carved without glaze on it, so that's the one that the template for the mold to create these, the only piece that was molded is these crane platters. The rest are one of a kind. These are also Japanese cranes, strutting and fanning. And here's some whooping cranes here.
So that screen has the 15 cranes which are featured in the book?
Correct. So all 15 species that are in the book, and you can see this one, the original on the wall, and this one, the original on the wall. So you can see how big the originals were. And these are our small and medium prints that we make here at the Emerald Lady. Bodhi is excellent at learning how to do technology, so we make giclée, numbered and signed limited edition prints. We also have this poster of the white naped cranes, which we also make in our limited edition museum quality prints.
Tell them where they can find those.
Oh, Bodhi made me a website, Clare Cooley / he'll tell you because I don't.
ClareCooley.com/shop is where you can get the prints in 3 different sizes.
Small, medium, large, and all made here at the Emerald Lady to match the originals. And obviously we have the originals or excellent photographs of those that have sold and other people have. But Bodhi does the technological stuff, and so the prints are really beautiful, and I'm very proud of them, and we don't have to mark them up because we do them ourselves. And we also, he made the Clare Cooley .shop.
ClareCooley.com/shop.
ClareCooley.com/shop, where the prints are. Incandescencebook.com is where all of these live read videos are. So if you miss one or you want to share it or see it again, that's where you go. So let's move on to reading the story. And
great. And let them know if they have any questions, drop them in the comments.
Yes, any questions you have, if you drop them in the comments after reading the story, I'm going to answer questions. We're going to share a little more crane-inspired art before the end of this live read, and a extra little something at the end that I'm working on. Creative project. Okay.
Sure. Why don't you tell us just a little bit about the story and then we'll dive into it.
Well, Cranes on the Cliffs of Moher in County Clare is a story from when I was about 18 years old, part of the story, and then there's parts that are before Bodhi was born. And cranes have been important to me since I can remember, and this story is partly a personal journey into what my connections, some of which is understandable. They dance and sing, and one of the species flies over the Himalayas, and they equally parent their young. There's so many, they're just beautiful, and they live on every continent except for Antarctica and South America. They've been here for at least 10 million years, so it's understandable why they're so inspirational. But there's also things I can't explain, but I feel them, and I trust these feelings, and I don't need to explain it to believe in the beauty of my connection with the cranes. So there's, besides the 52 stories in my memoir, this being chapter 44, there's also 68 pieces of my art. Lots of cranes in my art, but I've painted and drawn everything from outer space to insects and everything in between. A few people, but mostly it's nature, my sanctuary, my design teacher. I'm self-taught other than nature, which taught me a lot just by observing it. And so let's let the story tell you,
Great, let's move on to the story.
and then we'll do some questions after and a little more art. So, chapter 44, Cranes on the Cliffs of Moher in County Clare. Art is my way to find the good in everything. Creativity is how I process pain. While drawing, writing, designing, dancing, gliding, spinning, I feel free, flying without wings. Instinctively, I knew that creativity could carry me through challenges. Expression of emotions stimulates the immunological system. When I discovered dance therapy was a profession, I felt it was a way I could be of service to the world. Catharsis through creative movement carried me through much adversity. The prospect of guiding others to this gift felt right. To get a dance therapist credential, I would need a degree in dance performance before I could be an apprentice to a dance therapist. Most dancers perform for people, but I wanted to help people to dance for themselves. My inspiration is not how the dance looks, but how it feels. Not watching others express, but expressing ourselves. It is what offers us the most benefit. I set out to find a school where students could design their own study program. I found Antioch College in San Francisco, where I could write my own degree plan. I fasted in solitude in the woods for 3 days without distractions to write my degree plan so I could find my most authentic curiosity to commit to studying. I called my degree plan the study of movement. It was all about expressing feelings through creativity for its intrinsic healing qualities. When I shared my degree plan with my advisors, they said they did not understand it, but they trusted it. I asked them, how can you trust it if you don't understand it? They said, you understand it, and we trust you. So what would you advise me to do, being you are my advisors? They all answered a version of urging me to continue following my instincts. That made me seriously consider whether borrowing money to get a credential validating that I could educate myself made sense. I thought it best to give it some time before deciding. I set myself up in the corner of the warehouse the school was in and did sumi painting exercises, wrote, played my porcelain flute, and danced. I was curious about a class called Guided Imagery and Music. In the class, we were told to lay on the floor with our eyes closed and breathe deeply while listening to music. We each had a partner, and one of us was a guide sitting next to the one lying on the floor. In the first class, I was the guide, and my partner shared she saw her mother as a train, barreling down the tracks and running over her. She was traumatized by what she saw, as were most of the students who shared their experiences. While walking to the next class through downtown San Francisco, I passed by many struggling people who were homeless, addicted, mentally unstable, emotionally wounded, confused, and lost. With each one I passed, a weight increased on my chest. By the time I got to class, it was difficult to breathe or move. I was glad it was my turn to lay on the floor. I heard the teacher talking, but his words were without meaning to me. I couldn't think of anything but all the suffering people I passed on the way to class. I felt immense sadness. Without making any sound, I said, "Help me not turn away from the pain of others, but not be crushed by it." I didn't know what or who I prayed to. I never have had certainty about this, but it does not matter. I trust the mysterious magnificence of the universe, and that is enough. After silently asking the ineffable for help, tears rolled down my cheeks. I felt a sudden, powerful shift. In the moment, I felt my cells separate, allowing more space between every molecule of my being. I could feel the music move the hair on my arms and then pass through my body. I became aware I was not solid. My body did not have a distinct edge, but combined with everything surrounding it, the entire universe. I understood I was connected to and part of everything. The sounds in the room were gone, and I looked down without opening my eyes, and I saw I was dancing barefoot on sharp rocks. As soon as I felt the sensation of pain on the bottom of my feet, I looked down again, and I had bird feet. Weightless on the rocks, I felt no pain. As I moved closer to the edge of the cliff, a warm wind lifted me effortlessly as I opened my large wings. Soaring along the stone edge, I did not flap. The thermals carried me. Tilting my body slightly, I flowed toward or away from the cliff's edge that drops straight down to the ocean. Waves lapped against the stone cliff with a constant, powerful rhythm. Gliding along the rock edge, I saw a place where there was a small half circle of stones. A few birds stood around, and one lay motionless. I descended and landed beside 5 birds surrounding one dead bird on a small beach made of pebbles. One of the birds asked me without a sound, "Would you like to go where birds go when they leave their bodies?" "Yes," was my spontaneous, silent answer the birds heard. We flew upward, circling as we ascended beyond the rock cliff, rising until there was no more land or sea below and no more sky above. I could not see, hear, or feel anything but serenity and beauty. For the first time during the class, my partner said something. "Where are you?" "I'm in the most beautiful place I've ever been." "What does it look like?" she asked. "I cannot see anything," I answered. "How do you know it is beautiful if you can't see anything?" "It just is," I said to her, and she didn't ask any more questions. When we all shared our experiences, the teacher seemed to like the reports of upsetting and violent stuff the other students gave. After I spoke of my experience, he said, "You experienced false euphoria because you have not gone through the trauma to get there." "How do you know what I've been through?" I responded. He was so upset with me, he left the class to meditate. "I have seen this before. She's trying to take over the class," he said to the other students when he returned. Looking at the other students, I asked, "Does anyone else think I'm trying to take over the class?" No one agreed with the teacher. I left the class and realized school was not my natural way to learn. My path led elsewhere. I dreamt the next night I was hitchhiking east on Skyline Highway, running from south of San Francisco to Santa Cruz. I consulted the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes, and it said, it furthers one to go to the northeast corner. So I said my goodbyes and asked my stepsister to take me to Alice's restaurant above Woodside, the spot from my dream. While waiting for a ride, I remembered a dream of an older woman who was dancing with the churning sea. I was so excited, thinking it was my turn to dance with the ocean, but she looked at me and pointed over to the sand dunes. I understood it was where I was to dance. Walking up the dune, I did not know what was on the other side until I got to the top and looked out at a marina full of people. Disappointed I was not to dance with the water, which felt so peaceful. I was supposed to help bring peace to people who needed it. On my journey, I visited Duluth. At an all-day outdoor party, 9 different people told me I should teach dance. I listened, and soon after, I began my adult evening class that I called A Way to Learn to Dance for Joy. This was only the beginning of teaching a wide range of age groups, as well as at hospitals, rehabilitation centers, and crisis shelters. I stayed for my first fall next to Lake Superior. When the birds migrated in autumn, I missed them terribly, and I went to the library, assigning myself the task of drawing lines that could fly. I wanted to refine each bird to its simplest form, to do it in pen and ink with the fewest lines to portray the essence of the creature. Years later, back in San Francisco, I realized I had to paint cranes, and I didn't question why. When I discovered the International Crane Foundation in Baraboo, Wisconsin, the one place in the world where all 15 species live, I decided to go. I called the director and he invited me to visit, which I did in the winter while it was not open to the public. I was allowed to sit within the enclosures and observe the birds. While I was there, someone at a lunch gathering asked the director, "You never let me go in. How come she gets to?" He answered in a matter-of-fact manner, "She is a crane." When I was speaking to the administrator, she asked, "Why cranes, Claire?" Before I could answer, she looked at me over her glasses and said, "Oh, you were one." Those events made me recall asking my mother, "What do I say at exhibitions when people ask me why I paint birds?" My mother answered without hesitation, "That's simple, dear. You are one." I was keenly aware of my weight while wishing I could fly, soar, and glide. I yearned for the perspective birds have high above it all. I returned from the International Crane Foundation with 600 pages of written information on cranes. I decided to open the pages to a random place, hoping it would help me understand why my mysterious connection to the cranes. I closed my eyes and opened to the middle of the pages, putting my finger on a particular spot. Opening my eyes, I read, "The only place in all of Ireland and Scotland where the bones of cranes have been found is in County Clare and County Sligo." Until that moment, I had not thought about what sort of bird I shifted into during my experience in San Francisco many years earlier. After my visit to the cranes, while standing in my boyfriend's kitchen, I saw a square tea can with photos of Ireland on each side. It was the first time I saw the place I flew over at 18 years old. I walked over to the counter and picked up the tea can, and in small print at the bottom was written, "Cliffs of Moher, County Clare." About 10 years later, my dear friend Jonathan Rice, who I thought of as a spiritual father, invited me on a wild cruise along the west coast of Ireland. The cliffs of Moher were one of the stops where we got in Zodiac boats to get close to the rugged coast. As I was getting into the boat, the second officer shouted down from the pilot house, "Tie a rope around her so she doesn't fly away." When we got close to the rock cliff, I recognized the tiny half-circle, small stone-covered beach where I met the birds back in San Francisco. When we got back to the boat, a woman came up to me and said, "You must read this." She was pointing to a particular spot in the middle of a book about the Celts. It said, the ancient Celts, like the American Indian, could transmogrify, shapeshift, to become the spirit of another creature. Reading this, I went into a soft shock and was not able to ask her why she showed this to me. I barely managed to thank her as I stumbled away in a daze. I have no explanation for this. Trying to explain it rationally every time I'm left with greater unknowns than the minuscule aspects I can comprehend. Perhaps sometimes I wonder if we carry the DNA of our human ancestors, then why would we not carry the DNA of our pre-human ancestors? Perhaps that afternoon in San Francisco, my heart was so opened by all the suffering I witnessed, I connected to my crane ancestors. Could it be we are connected to everything, but only when we are wide open to notice what normally goes unnoticed? Perhaps when we are still and our loud minds are silent, can we comprehend the natural state of the universe where everything is interwoven? Only when we need not understand can we accept what we cannot explain. There are rare moments when the structures we put on our lives fall away, and what remains is what is actually real. The mysterious complexity is what is authentic, and the over-simplified limitations we put on time, space, consciousness, and existence are the illusion. What I feel confident of, what we can know, is insignificant to what we cannot. Becoming comfortable with the mystery can lead us through to amazing awareness. Thinking we can know the ineffable is an ultimate demonstration of human hubris. The only thing we can know with certainty is mysteries in this unimaginably expansive universe will continue to unfold as long as we continue to explore. I accept our unknowns will also remain elusive. I am grateful whether or not I ever know how I am connected to the cranes or to the cliffs of Moher in County Clare. Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah. So hopefully a couple of you who've asked questions about why birds and why cranes and why nature and got some more satisfying answers, or at least the questions I asked myself. I feel it's very important to ask questions. Having answers, well, that happens sometimes, and sometimes we're wrong with the answers, and we have to move on and readjust in life and grow and expand with the information that comes in. And so asking the questions is what we should never cease doing, being curious, and that's why children are so creative, because they know how little they know. Why should we think we know enough, or that we should stop asking questions. We never should. We should always, in my opinion, be curious and keep expanding and keep asking questions. And it's okay to have an opinion that later you redefine based on new information you've gotten. So don't be afraid to be wrong. As long as you learn from your inquiries, that's right. And keep moving, keep being curious, keep being creative. So shall we show some more art or ask some questions that came in, Bodhi?
Your choice.
We can do a few more questions and then we'll show some.
Great. Okay. So John said, what was your artistic vision for the dishes?
The dishes, I wanted all 15 species of cranes to be represented in this way that nourishes us, eating, and to show
Could you get one close to just one dish close to the camera so we can see the detail?
Let's see if we can find, there's a little frog, where is it? No, in. Well, the dessert bowls have butterflies, flying insects from the marsh. Does that work?
That looks good.
And the would you do this?
Okay, how about let's just do a flower here.
Well, that's
Since this
actually
one's ready.
water lilies, because the cranes are the marshland habitat, and you can show the lily pads on the salad plate there.
All right, and then here's a salad plate with a lily pad carved on it. For those of you who don't know, we're going live on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can also see these on incandescencebook.com, and you can watch the live streams after the fact as well. So all of them are there, available.
So that's the dinner plate with the, and that's the one of the 15 species there.
So each dinner plate has a different species of crane, and each piece has a different carving on it. They were all hand carved.
This one has a fish,
Yep.
and the coffee pot has cattails, feathers on the sake cup. We have buds for the salt and pepper shakers. I thought it was cute to have ants across the sugar bowl.
Cute.
And
So what was the artistic vision behind it?
the artistic vision was to share the cranes and their habitat. They nest in the marshlands, which is the drinking water of the world. So turning the cranes and their habitat into art that we eat off of, nourish us, helps us to reflect on that we're all connected, and that they nest in the drinking water of the world, and to protect their habitat protects us. And they nourish us, we protect them, and part of the reason cranes are the most iconic symbol of my work is because there's a lot that human beings are worried about, understandably, with climate change and degradations to environments, but the cranes are an uplifting story. People have gotten together around the world, and through the International Crane Foundation that I'm fortunate enough to have gotten to visit and been welcomed into, and they have protected cranes and increased the populations. I think the whooping crane in this country got the closest to extinction because they're a big target and easy to hunt, and women used to make them, or they used to be made into hats and.
Rose is watching, by the way. Say hi.
Oh, Rose from the International Crane Foundation. Hi, and so I have a story about going to visit the International Crane Foundation with Bodhi, and we stopped and camped, and there was a man and his wife there, and he was going to go out and hunt the sandhill crane, and so I gave him my stationery as a gift. I didn't shame him and say, oh, you shouldn't do this. I just gave it to him as a gift, and he came back to me later and said, I'll never hunt cranes again. And I thought, there you go. Art opens our hearts, and that is what it's done for me, what it keeps doing for me, and it's what I want to share with the world. I think it's the best I have to give. Is the cranes are an uplifting story of people caring around the world and not caring about our differences, but investing in what we have in common, which is we all want to live in a healthy world and in respect for each other and the environment. So
Yeah.
that's why cranes, besides all their aesthetic beauty, and yes.
Great, and I just want to point out for everyone here, so we have 4 place settings, right? And each piece is hand carved by Clare.
And unique, not.
Yeah, they're all different images. Every place setting is a different species of the crane. So the remaining 15 place settings are back there in the china cabinet. So it's over 200 individual pieces, right?
202 in this place setting, in this set of crane dishes. And as I said, I was painting the originals that then became the Book of Cranes when I got this opportunity I got an opportunity to help my stepsister with something that she wanted to pay me back for. And I said, no, that's not the spirit of this gift I'm giving you. It was funding for a project, and she said, well, then I'll make you a set of dishes you get to design. And so that's where the crane dishes happened, and what was in my heart and mind were cranes. So I had no time to design them. I would literally show up. I had a young child, and I was still raising one of my nephews, and she had kids, and we were both busy, so I would just show up, and whatever was leather hard and ready to be carved, I would just carve spontaneously without futzing over the design. So lily pads, the insects, flying insects, fishes, cranes, and the feathers, and the soup tureen I love with the little branch on top. So it was, the little turtle on top of the teapot. So it was all what was right there, spontaneous.
Great. Well, we got 15 minutes, so do you want to show, and then we'll come back to the other questions we have?
Yes, let's do that. Let's show. Next, what we're going to do is move in here, because I'm going to show you crane stencil project I'm going to be stenciling onto clothing and other places that you can stencil. So come on in here. So these stencil designs then get turned into, they're scanned by Bodhi and put on the computer, and then they're turned into acetate stencils that I will be showing soon, adding to the live stream content, stenciling. And I have many examples of clothing on walls, on platters. Different stencils can be used in many different ways. And I don't know if you can see all the way across. I've shown that before. the first ones I did was for a project at the Hills for at-risk youth program, and so I did hand-cut stencils of peace in 48 different languages. Then I got a hot knife, an inexpensive tool, which is a great way to go to cut stencils, much easier than the
Here's-
acetate. Yes,
Here's some stencil examples.
Yes, so stationery, note cards, there's so many different things you can use stencils for, and they're beautiful gifts as well as things to adorn your own life. And so I'm going to be making these into stencils. I finally invested in a stencil cutting machine because I realized I was going to be doing more of this that I wanted to cut by hand. So these will turn into acetate stencils that then I'll use in different ways, and I'll show you. While we're in here, I'll show you this original crane painting. It's not under glass. The Damosel cranes. At the right place for it?
Yes. And you can talk about, there's an original crane painting at the ICF right now.
Yes, there is one of my originals at the ICF, as well as my stationery and my memoir, and
So you can,
prints. There's prints of my work there, so you can get it through the ICF.
the International Crane Foundation, they have a Facebook page and they have a store, an online store. You wanted to show the spring tree?
Yeah, well, this is, it was the winter gift-giving season tree just a week ago. Now it's transforming into the spring tree. It's just something I have fun changing it every season. And so that's another little creative project. So let's go back to some questions and
Okay.
so, yeah, so there's, as you can see, the cranes have inspired me to do all sorts of art, and you'll see some of these crane stencils on kimonos and jackets and blouses and t-shirts and all sorts of things in the near future. And
Great. So the next question is from Kim. Where did you get the cabinet you have the china in?
I got to design this cabinet for the china, and it was made out in California. And this cabinet, the fine art, the creativity entertainment cabinet, and the bench all were made by Gary Kleinman out in California for our last home, but I think they work they're just as lovely here with this classic design historic home.
Great. So then Jane asked, do you frame your own art?
Yes, I have a frame shop downstairs, and unfortunately when we went down there, I think the last read or the one before, some of the places were broadcasting this, the reception went out, but I have a frame shop in the cellar, and I not only frame my own art, but I have designed my own type of frames, framing is, I learned to do it pretty young in my career because it can be very expensive, and so as a fine artist, I thought, well, you know, let's do this ourselves. So I have my own shop room that I frame, and I get to design my own type of framing, which is my scroll that I've shown in some of the other live reads. hand-painted wood scroll, or the fabric white scroll, or the acrylic big dowel. Very, yeah.
Joni said, so expansive and thought-provoking.
Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate that, and I do love this way to connect with you during this time. Even before social distancing, I've had a dream of doing this because it's so eco-friendly, so economical to communicate this way without having to drive or fly anywhere with people across the planet. So I'm very delighted this has become a reality. It's been a dream of mine for a long time.
Then
Virtual visits, I call them.
Rose Boyajian asked, will you be offering a crane kimono similar to the piece you are wearing?
I will be using my crane stencil designs and doing them on kimonos, but it will not be like this traditional Japanese kimono, but they will be, I have some black kimono silk fabric that I've gotten over the years that I'll be stenciling the cranes on. So yes, there will be crane kimonos, but it won't look like this one.
You've also done scarves.
I've done scarves, I've done so many different, silk shirts, pants, jackets.
Yeah, Rose, we got to talk about collaborating with the ICF. We'll come up with we'll come up with some ideas.
That'd be nice. That'd be nice. Art is for everybody, so I love to get it out there and share it in as many different ways, and the beauty of the cranes and the message of living in harmony.
Erica Bree said, OMG, I was hoping to see your work in ceramics. I arrived later this time to see the full reading today, so I'll catch up later.
Right, and everybody should know that if you have to take off or you arrive late, it's fine. You can see these. They're recorded at incandescencebook.com or the Creativity Show on YouTube, and you can share it with others, and they're all recorded there for your viewing pleasure. And I love to hear from you when you see them and any ideas you have or questions.
And if you scroll down the Creativity Show on Facebook, if you go down the feed on the Creativity Show, you can find them. But the easiest way to watch them back is incandescencebook.com. Rose Boyajian said, exciting.
Great.
Yep, so we'll definitely come up with some fun crane art ideas. And then Lance said, I would be too scared to eat off of those dishes. They're so beautiful.
Well, thank you, Lance. I appreciate that. And I have a little story that with 202 dishes, as I was carrying out the very last set of dishes, these little napkin rings and little chopstick holders coming out of the ceramic studio, 202 pieces, I was tired and I tripped. I caught my foot on the stone step and the steps went up. And instead of holding them back and falling on the sharpest thing there is, fired ceramics that has sharper than knives, that's got glaze, I threw them out in front of me so that I wouldn't fall on them. And I'm so proud of that story because as hard as I worked, this project took a year. I didn't want to lacerate my body falling on them, so I let that last batch go, and I've never replaced the chopstick holders and napkin rings because, we're more precious than stuff. And so don't be afraid. If we invite you over for a meal, we won't let you get drunk and eat off of them, but other than that.
Cute. And then Steve asked, I see you have a color version of your book and a black and white version of your book. I'm curious why you chose to have a black and white version with so many pieces of art and so many pictures.
There are 68 pieces of art, and almost all of them have beautiful color in them, and 40 photographs, so I highly recommend the color version of the book. But, and I don't make more from the color version as I do from the black and white, even though it's slightly cheaper for people to buy it. But I've been so poor in my life that I had to decide whether to get a large package of safety pins or a small one, and I thought, you know what, I don't want to be this poor ever again, and I got a job managing a restaurant instead of just trying to be an artist. But I've been that poor, so I offer the black and white for the people that couple bucks makes a difference in their budget. But I do highly recommend the color version. Thank you for saying that. That's a great question and insight.
Okay, and that's the last question I have. If we missed any of your questions, because we're going live on multiple places, we will write them down and make sure to get them next week. But other than that, do you want to go to the outro?
Sure. Yeah,
here?
I think we're at that time.
Okay, it's going to take me 1 minute, so
Okay,
fill the
well,
time.
just thank you for being here. I really, really appreciate it. I feel very comfortable creating, and I'm very excited and comfortable sharing my creativity. I'm really not adept at promoting myself, so I appreciate it if other people share with their loved ones, anyone they think would appreciate the work. I really appreciate if you pass the words on. Thank you to every one of you for being here and your questions and the warmth in my heart from these virtual visits. And thanks again to the Minnesota State Arts Board for awarding me a grant to do these. And thanks to Perfect Duluth Day and Abigail Blonigan for the recent article they did on me, and
Thanks to the ICF and Rose.
And to Rose at the ICF, and to George, Archibald, the director, and to Clare Morandi, aviculturist there, who invited me to be in their home while I went out to see the cranes that first time. It really means a lot to me, this connection and this way of helping us all live on a healthier planet. And come back at 4 for Bodhi's live reading from his sci-fi thriller, Northport, 1999. And you can see his videos on his YouTube channel, Bodhi, B-O-D-H-I, the movie maker. And if you enjoyed this, please spread the word. Neither one of Bodhi or I are good at the self-promoting. We're trying to get better at it, and anytime you want to see our videos, you know where to go. YouTube, The Creativity Show, or Bodhi the Movie Maker, or incandescencebook.com. And see you next Saturday at 2 for my next live read, and come back at 4 for Bodhi's. And thank you so, so much for being here, and stay curious and stay creative.
All right, thank you so much, everybody. Wave. We're ending the live stream on Facebook. Ending now. Bye, you.